Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of You're the Best podcast. My name is Gina, and I'm the host of You're the Best. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening or watching my show today. This is episode 10. This is big. I've made it to 10 episodes. I'm pretty proud. Haven't given up yet, and I hope you all are enjoying all of my episodes. If you want to be on, let me know. If you have a topic you want to hear, let me know. I hope everybody's having a great week. It has been very humid and wet in the Northeast, which is not my favorite, but we're making do. So I hope the weather's better where you are. My guest tonight is someone that I've known for a long time, just like most of my guests. I haven't been in touch with her for a little while, but always on social media, which is great. She's a really great person. I've had some great conversations with her, and I'm really looking forward to hearing about what she's been up to. So, welcome, Vicki.
Thank you, Gina.
No problem.
I know, it's amazing. Thank God for social media. Thank God for social media that we can all stay connected. Seriously.
I know. Seriously.
Yeah.
So I know that a lot has happened since high school. I mean, a lot. We're adults now.
Yes.
And you're currently pregnant, which is so good. Congratulations. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
We were talking about that a little bit before we started. So we were just catching up on that. But I really want to hear like how everything started with you, because I know you have, I don't know what term you like better. Do you like a counselor or a therapist? Which one do you like better?
Yeah, so I identify as a therapist, right? But my technical title is a licensed clinical social worker. So that's what I actually received my undergraduate in and my master's in. So, but you know, whether you're a psychologist, a professional counselor, whatever it might be, we all just fall under that umbrella of therapist.
Okay, good, because I didn't know how to like introduce that.
Okay.
So I'll just use therapist. Therapist is good.
That's fine. That's fine. It's perfect. It's perfect. Yeah.
So is there something that you're grateful for today and every day?
Oh my gosh, yes. You know what, truthfully, I will tell you that I have to say I'm like, oh, there's so many things. Let me just tell you, first and foremost, I practice gratitude all the time. I'm like, oh, there's so many things I'm grateful for, right? Like, I love it. I love it all. I love my family. I love my health. I love all these things. I have to say something that I'm really grateful for, especially right now, is just really, it goes back to my female tribe, right? It's like, I am so grateful for the women that are in my life. I'm so grateful for the women that I'm reconnecting with. I'm so grateful just for all that feminine energy that's going to be around me and my daughter as like we continue to grow, you know?
It's something to be really grateful for. You need that. You need that tribe.
Totally.
Definitely.
Totally. Absolutely.
Well, my gratitude this week is just it should be that my husband is getting healthier, which I'm thankful for. But it's really for that I have the flexibility with my job now, and I'm really thankful for my manager. She's just like, he got sick and I was like, I can't come in. She's like, okay, I hope he feels better. And she just didn't give me shit about it. You know, not a lot of people have a good manager. So like, that's honestly my gratitude, because I'm very thankful that I have some flexibility in my life and I can work through it and I can take care of her, not worrying about if my job's in jeopardy right now. So Amanda, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you.
So you knew that's what you wanted to do when you went to school?
No, I actually went to, no, not at all. Funny story. So I went into college for chemical engineering, which was like, I mean, and I remember, and really, you know, it's funny, in high school, I did have an interest in the sciences, right? I liked chemistry. You know, I was always kind of trying to figure out when I went to college, what would be some ways that I could then turn that into a more profitable venture or career for myself. And I went for my freshman year, and I ended up just finding myself, I just think, super lost, right? I think freshman year is challenging anyways in college because there's such an independence, right? And you're like, woohoo, like I'm letting loose, I'm going wild. And my wild wasn't even as wild as some people, right? But even still, I think that there was just, right, like, I think that there was still just a part of me that was like, what am I doing, right? And so I ended up transferring, believe it or not, because I was like, I want to help people. I want to help people. And I transferred to WestCon, and I went to WestCon for nursing. And I was in like, some nursing pre-rec classes for the first semester that I was there. It was my sophomore year, the first, like what is it, fall semester. I was there, and I remember, I'm not even kidding you, I was in a lecture hall, and this overwhelming panic just like came over me. And I think that it just was like this, I don't know, right? Like, I'm a spiritual person. I was like, it's God, the universe, whatever, just kind of intervening in that moment. I like walked out.
Wow.
And I found myself like sitting on a bench in the courtyard being like, what am I doing with my life? Right? Like, I want to help people. Do I really want to be a nurse? Am I really prepared? I mean, listen, I give nurses, oh my gosh, the utmost respect and credit. They're phenomenal, phenomenal human beings.
Yes.
With that being said, I just didn't know if I wanted to be that exposed to some of the just everyday traumas, right?
Yeah.
Which is funny, but like
It's a
everyday
lot. No,
traumas
it's a
of being
lot.
in like, yes,
I couldn't do
yeah.
it. Give props to all those people that can. You're better than I am.
Gosh.
Like,
Seriously, amazing. Doctors, nurses, physicians assistants, midwives, I give them so much credit. But it was funny because one of my roommates at that time was going into social work, and she said, why don't you just come check out a class? And I said, okay. I fell in love. I mean, literally within that first class, I fell in love. I was like, okay, let me just continue to explore this. I'm not going to commit to anything. And here we are, after getting my bachelor's in social work and then my master's in social work, and then getting licensed in the state of Connecticut. And I have to tell you, I could never imagine another profession for myself.
that's great. Not many people can say that, honestly, because everyone's just like,
No, I know.
especially right when you get out of high school, like, what the fuck do I want to do with my life? Like, what do I want to do?
Yeah.
So it's cool that you
absolutely.
actually had the opportunity to go through the phases. Like, oh, I want to be this. No, I don't. Oh, I'm probably going to be this. No, I'm not going to. So it's nice that you found where you wanted to be.
Sure. I don't know if my parents felt that same way, right? Like, I think that, like, when I finally got into it, here's my father. He was like in IT, in the business world. Here was my mom, who was like a director of like the Catholic Center. So I think she understood a little bit more in regards to helping people.
Yeah.
But here's my sister, who was going to school, who's 2 years older than me, for like marketing and journalism and public relations kind of pieces. And I don't think they fully understood, but I'll tell you, they were extremely supportive. And I mean, I honestly think that if they had pushed back, it would have been a lot harder, but they didn't. So I got to give them props, right?
Yeah, good for
Sometimes.
them. But in that sense, yes, good for them, because
of course,
you have to let your kid like choose what makes them happy. Like, there's no point in forcing somebody to do something that you want them to do in life, not just your kids, your significant other, your friends. Like, if anybody is ever trying to force you to do something or be someone you don't want to be, then there's no point.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny because my husband had a very different experience in high school, where I don't know if you got the vibe in Mastic, but like I felt like we're always kind of pushed in the college direction, right? And like my husband, and he grew up in Jersey, my husband was like, he remembers very vividly his high school counselor saying to him, I just really don't think that you're like fit for college. Like, you're just not the right match for college. And
Oh,
so what was interesting is,
not
yeah,
even
I was like,
community
"Ooh, she should have
college.
been fired."
Not even
No,
community
just I
college. Like
don't.
that's what our counselors would
No,
say. You know
no.
what? Why don't you try a community college first? Then you can see where you want to go. No, it was just straight. Nope.
Yeah, I don't think that you're the right fit, right? And
Wow.
what's interesting is that he really, I mean, talk about someone who then said, "Okay, I'm going to put myself into vocational school, go into the machinist world, and is now working as a programmer at Sikorsky." I mean, like,
Wow.
it's amazing how that educational piece, I think in some, communities, socioeconomic status, whatever, was so pushed. But then here's my husband, and we've had conversations about that more recently about, the importance of education to us, but also how, like, our little one, our daughter is, may not learn in the same way as someone else, and how we can support her. And she's not
Yeah.
even in this world yet, right? And we're
Right.
already having those conversations.
That's really nice. That's good work for you guys. Like good job
It
automatically
is, it
just like
is, it
having that
is.
in your brain. So good for you. That's a great
Yeah,
start to
yeah.
being a
For anyone
parent.
who's wondering, this is water, not wine.
Yeah.
Water, not wine. No
Cheers,
judgment here,
cheer,
people.
cheers
No
to your
judgment. I
wine,
know.
cheers to your
Cheers, cheers.
pregnancy.
I know. I know.
But that's amazing. I'm really glad that you found something that you're passionate about and that you
Yeah,
enjoy doing every day.
yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah.
So, did you
I would
work for
definitely say,
somebody
yeah,
like right when you got out?
yeah. So oh man, that job history is so fun, right? So
I
I
mean, you don't
worked
need to go
for
through your whole resume, but
I know. I know. No, I started out my career, believe it or not, working with children and adolescents.
oh,
But it was, and they were in, it was the New Milford, kind of Danbury area. And then when I was going for my master's, I stayed with the same company. But the really beautiful thing was they allowed me to do work study, or not work study. I don't know how to describe it, but they allowed me to basically work, keep my position, but move up technically so that I could clinically challenge myself a little bit more. So
cool.
it helped because a lot of people who go for master's programs, I feel like don't have that opportunity, right, to be able to say, I can work at the same time because it's being put towards
Yeah.
as an internship, right? And
Yeah.
so I was very, very fortunate in that way. And then after working with kids and adolescents, I was like, forget this. I mean, listen, I love my teens and I have teen clients right now. Kids are a different ballpark. They just are.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just are.
I just I have a hard time thinking about kids in therapy, like smaller children, because it's like a
Yeah.
lot of times they do not have the mental capacity to deal with some of the things and they can't communicate it properly to you. So you don't want to tell them or suggest to do one thing if like that's really not the underlying issue because you'll never know. Like I don't know, like I have a stepson, I've known him since he was 3.5, and he was
Mhm.
put into therapy a couple times, and I was just like, this has got to be the hardest thing because I've seen him in sessions, like he's not sharing what's going on, so how as a professional are you
Yeah.
supposed to tell what's going on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Sure. Sure.
it's really hard. So
It's
I'm
challenging.
I'm right there with
Yes.
you. Like that would be a harder
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think also hearing really horrible stories and then being like, I now have to go home, you know what I mean, at the end of the day and not carry that with me. So I think that that
Oh
was
God.
always really challenging. Yeah. I mean, it was really challenging, right? I worked with children who had gone through emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. And then you also had some children who just were, biologically, they were predisposed to certain mental health issues, chaotic lifestyles, right, in homes, especially when I was working in Bridgeport and
Yeah.
dealing with a lower socioeconomic community.
Mhm.
That was really challenging, right?
Yeah.
That was really challenging also because I was coming in and there was this kind of expectation of like, well, I need you to trust me, but why would they, right? Like
Yeah.
that was I did not grow up in the same environment.
I was just gonna say
I would
it's hard to relate
yeah,
when you don't grow up in the same environment. So it's like,
a
all
hundred
right, so I have
percent.
to learn all that and then learn all about them. Like
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, no, it was a ton. It was a ton. And I think also just always those safety concerns too of we were going into looking back at it, I'm like, wow, even in my job environment, there were some really shady, scary moments. And I was very thankful that I had a male partner in my team because I think if we had been, even though as women we rule the world, I think there was some reassurance and comfort in knowing that like I had a little bit of backup there in
Yeah.
case I was feeling really unsafe, right? Just even
Yeah.
walking from one house down the street to another house and being inappropriately talked to,
Yeah.
like, so
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. It's a
I think it's
completely
just
different
it's stuff like
world.
that.
It really
It
is. We grew up in
is.
the suburbs.
It
That's
is for
that's a
sure.
city. I lived there for like
Oh,
6 years. I
yes, yes.
I totally understand. It is a
Yeah.
culture shock once because
Yeah.
you hear about things, but until you like live there or experience that
100%.
environment, you're like, oh wow, this is really what it is. It's intense. So
Absolutely. It
and I know
is. It is.
when I was
But
living there, I used to see like little kids walking themselves to school like blocks away. And I'm
mm,
just like, damn,
I
man, could
know.
you imagine? Like, who knows what the
No,
situation is? Maybe like it's a single mom and she's got to work 7 jobs to keep everything afloat. So, like it
sure.
could be so
Sure.
many different things. And it's just like, it was tough to just see. So I can only imagine how you felt, talking to them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think with those experiences, you become a little bit, I don't want to say, I wouldn't say jaded, but I would say that you become a little bit more desensitized. That I really was like, if I want to have children one day, seriously, before I even knew I struggled with infertility, but I was like, if I want to have children, if I want to have children one day, um, I need to get out of this field, right? And
Yeah.
so I had a completely different experience, and I was working at Silver Hill Hospital in their dual diagnosis inpatient. So I was working with CEOs, celebrities, you know, anyone you could basically imagine who had wealth, who was very entitled, right?
Hmm.
That was now who I was working with, and they were adults. But I will tell you, it opened up my world to if we don't intervene sometimes with the younger ones, what do they then become?
Yeah.
Right. So
That's
it was
tough.
this,
Oh,
it was
that's
very
tough.
like parallel in some ways. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot. I mean, I loved it. I loved it. But I think that there was actually something that after a while, you go from being in this social worker role, on an inpatient unit to a higher socioeconomic status or celebrity status. And it starts going from I'm doing some case management and running therapeutic groups to now you're perceiving me as like your assistant. And that was like a wake up call to me of I need to get out of here.
Yeah,
This is
no.
not actually the population I want to
Yeah.
work with. So I shifted, went back to Bridgeport and worked at Bridgeport Hospital on their psychiatric unit.
That was probably way
And
better
that
than
was,
most. It's like serious
I was
trauma that's
like,
going to
what did I
serve
just do?
me
I
serious
know, I
trauma because
know.
people are treating me like shit. Now I'll just go to maybe normal people. I
I
don't know. I
know.
don't know.
You know what? I'll tell you, that was a lot of the homeless population, right, who was coming in and I think also seeking shelter because of the certain like weather conditions, but also some pretty significant mental health issues. And I think what you kind of walk away from that is saying, will this burn me out in the long run? And that kind of opened my eyes up to private practice. And I ended up having a really beautiful opportunity to transition to working in a group practice, and then something just kind of shifted in me where I was like, why am I paying someone else to get my intakes or do certain things when I could be managing this on my own? So in 2016, yeah, I opened up my own practice.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
awesome. Congrats. That's a
Thank
huge
you.
accomplishment.
It was. It still is to this day. It is. other than of course being married and being pregnant and having my fur babes, it is, it's a true accomplishment, but it's such a moment of pride for me, right? Because there's something, and I mean, even with like your podcast, right? There's something really beautiful when you're like, I'm in control, but I'm also making changes that other people would have maybe put barriers or boundaries around, and I don't have to worry about that.
Exactly. Yes. It's very
Right?
nice
Right?
running
Yeah.
your own show.
It is. It is. It is. Literally and figuratively. Yes.
Well,
Yes.
yeah.
Absolutely.
That's so great though. Like I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Did you
Thank
start
you.
with
Thank
just
you.
you or did you have like some people you already
Yeah.
wanted to bring in or it was
I was solo. I was a solo cup over there, girl. I was like, and the funny thing is I never wanted to be a group practice. Believe it or not, I would see friends, I would see other therapists. Basically, I will tell you, most of my friends are therapists. They're in like the therapy world somehow. Um, but like I was seeing them and I was seeing how much energy they were putting into things. And I was like, I'm good, right? Like I've got this, I'm good. And what's really beautiful, and I'm very grateful, right? Like I think when you know you're good at something, and I don't mean that in like a egotistical or narcissistic way, right? But like I love what I do. I know that I'm good at what I do, and I know that I'm always challenging myself to be better at what I do, right?
right?
And when that word gets out from other clients and you start getting all these referrals in, at one point what was challenging was I didn't want to say no anymore.
Mm.
And so I ended up hiring on, actually so funny, like 2 months before the pandemic hit, my first therapist who's been working with me, her name is Heather, and we have just been rolling from there. And I now have two other therapists who work underneath me, Kristen and Sergina. And I have to
Cool.
say they're all phenomenal. Um, but we didn't expect for a pandemic to hit and for mental health services to blow up, if I'm being completely honest, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Huge in the last year. Huge.
Yeah, huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
So it's a good thing
Yeah,
you did expand
yeah.
then. Good timing. I mean, shitty
It
timing, but
is.
also
It
good
is.
timing.
I mean, it's so bad. I would sit there and I would say, like, to people, they'd be like, well, how's business? And I was like, I mean, it's wonderful, but I feel really bad saying that because there's a lot of people who are coming to me because they're so anxious, right?
And they
So
feel
it
very
was this.
horrible about themselves. But I'm doing great.
I mean,
Ugh,
it's so tough, right?
yeah.
It's this double-edged sword, and you're just like, But I will tell you, I'm glad that we are able to continue to just service the community, and just provide that support because it's still going on. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's still going on. It's funny because as I've heard some of your fabulous guests before me, there's been this theme of, and you've talked about it very openly, but this beautiful theme of anxiety,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Which is one of my specialty places along with women's issues. Um, and so it's so, for one thing, I have to tell you what I love about your podcast is that you're just talking so openly about it. Cause I'm like, there's still this stigma, I think, for a lot of people to say, ooh, like, I'm just really nervous. You have
Yeah.
anxiety. Ooh, don't say that. I don't think I have anxiety. Don't say that. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's not a curse word, you
It's
know?
not. It's not. More people need to open up about it
Mhm.
because if more
Yeah.
people open up, it will just be like, oh, wait, we all have it. It's at different degrees, but we all
Yes.
have this bullshit going on in our heads because that's what it feels like. It just feels like all this
Sure.
nonsense all the time. And being a parent doesn't help. So
Absolutely.
just keep that in mind in a couple months.
Oh yeah, girl. Oh yeah. I got you. I got you on that one. Yep. Mm-hmm.
No. But
Mm-hmm.
also like
No, absolutely.
I feel like a lot of people from the pandemic, I feel like they already had it before and this just heightened it. So I feel like maybe they're more open now to help and
Yes.
support, which is a good thing.
100%. 100%. No, I agree with that. I'm seeing definitely in cases more recently an uptick in teens, working with a lot of teens. They're seeking a lot more support. And I'll tell you, connection is so ingrained in us as human beings. And for a lot of these like kids, teens, I mean, even adults, right? I think that as adults, we adapted a little bit better, keyword a little bit, right? But I think that these teens having to do the distance learning, school piece has really left a mark. And so
Mhm.
now when I'm getting these calls from parents saying, I need my teen seen, I'm like, okay, well, we're offering like teletherapy, but we also have some in-office hours available. They're jumping on the in-office because these kids are like, I'm over it. I don't want to
Yeah.
look at a screen anymore. And I get it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think we can all understand that.
There's a huge disconnect. Huge disconnect. And even though we're
Huge.
seeing each other, we could still pick up on the body cues, the signals, all of that.
Hmm.
There's just something different. And even like for my podcast, like I prefer everybody to be here, but like obviously not everybody
Of
could be here.
course.
But like it's just so
Yeah,
much, I don't know. I don't know, it just feels better. It's just a different experience. So
sure.
I can imagine how a lot of people are coming in their teen years right now or even younger
Yeah.
talking about that. And also like
Yeah.
technology is so advanced. Like a lot of these teens, like they're growing up with things given to them, just things that we've had to like work
Mm,
through. And it's like it's great in one hand, but in another hand it's like, okay, but like do you know how this happened? Do you know how we got to this place? Do you know
mm,
do you know the
yeah.
awkward years we
Yeah.
had to go through before you could just have all this
Yep.
information?
Yep.
I'm just
Absolutely.
saying because
Absolutely.
nobody censors anything. Like parents just give them, here's your kids, there's no parental controls, here's your phone, there's no parental control. Like I did it with my daughter. She's almost 2 and she has her iPad. I didn't turn on the parental controls because I was like, well, let's see what happens, let's see what happens. And then when she gets
Where
older
did
I'll
she go, Gina? That's the question. Where'd
nowhere.
she go with that?
Nowhere. She loves YouTube. She loves Blippy, but like
Oh my
it's funny
gosh.
because it plays those type of shows. It doesn't even offer anything
Yeah.
else. So I'm like, oh, so she doesn't
Oh,
really get to
interesting.
decide. So it's like there's so much going on
Mm,
with technology. So that's why I'm saying like technology plays such a huge role. And it's like they love it, but
sure.
when it comes to education
Oh
and
yeah.
there's no replacement, I feel like. And it's weird because I'm
Oh
in
gosh.
college doing online classes and I would much prefer to do them online and teach myself,
Absolutely.
but I feel like those core years you just need to be in person. You need it.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. I think that it's funny that you say that. I think for one thing, I'm grateful, right, that kids, teens, some adults are so good with technology, right?
Yeah.
I think that it would make my job, especially doing, teletherapy right now, so much more challenging. Um, but I will say it's funny that you say that because, you know, even some of, I think the issues that are coming up for some of these teenagers, especially, the ones have been coming more so through now. You said it so well. We all went through those awkward times, but I think it was just so different because, it's really weird when I think about this, but like when I had a cell phone in high school, it was a straight up flip phone.
Yeah. Oh
And it
yeah.
was like you
Oh
had like
yeah.
minutes because my parents like didn't want to pay for like an actual plan for us. Okay. So like that
Call
was
me
like an
after
emergency
8.
phone if
It's
you
free
like
after 8.
exactly, exactly, exactly. And I think like for me, I just sit there and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I even think about like for our own daughter, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like what is technology going to even look like for her? It
Yep.
just, I mean, you're kind of in that same boat, right?
Yep.
Like it's going to probably just surpass us even more so. But it is amazing because I will tell you, um, there's such a resilience that comes from the, I think, awkward years that we all went through, right? Like our
Mhm.
generation. Um, that they're just not, they're not going to always experience at this point. And yes, it's some parenting pieces there, right? That
Of
whole
course.
dynamic and piece of
Our parents
I don't want my child to have to struggle.
our parents were fucked up too. I mean, they're like parents are just in general all
Sure,
the time.
they're all imperfect. Sure, sure, sure. 100%.
I mean, not to be like mean or anything, but like it doesn't matter what generation you're
Sure,
in, parents will be messed up.
sure, sure. 100%, right? Like it's that generational line, unfortunately, where it just our parents' stuff was passed to them by their parents, which I mean, this is generational, right? Like, and we
Hmm.
always have the choice of how do we cut that off? Which is a lot of the work that I do with my clients these days, especially, when I'm doing trauma work, which is a huge, I know it's so weird to say, but like a huge passion place for me.
I mean, it's understandable though, because you want to help somebody. You want to help them get through a really tough time in their life. And who doesn't want to be responsible for
Yeah.
helping someone? Who doesn't want to be a part of that process? So I can understand how you are passionate about
Yeah.
that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I think that also trauma work has taken such a shift and it's moved to um, body work and it's kind of being more outside of the box instead of just like sitting in a room and telling your therapist every single thing that went wrong or happened in your life, right? Like, I don't even do
Mhm.
that with my own clients. I practice EMDR and it's like, I'm a nerd about it. You know what I mean? Like,
What is
I
that?
love that therapy technique. EMDR. Okay,
Yeah,
ready? Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Good. Okay. It's eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. So through but I'm like, how do I
I'm
explain
sorry, I'm
this in such
picturing
a
someone
fun
being
way?
like,
I but exactly, but no, exactly what you just did. So what
yeah.
you just did is bilateral stimulation. So when you move your eyes back and forth, it's sending signals to the brain for the brain to process the information that you are either talking about, whether it's from the past or even present, and to reprocess it appropriately into the brain instead of getting stuck. When we have trauma, it gets stuck in the back of the brain near the amygdala, which is why people who have PTSD have such a fight, flight, or freeze response. Because think of it as like it was trauma that was never worked through, or they worked through it and it was like talk therapy and they really didn't get anything out of it.
Mhm.
And EMDR is so beautiful because it's like we're taking that trauma, we're bringing it back to the forefront of the brain again by processing it in a specific way. We're adding in that bilateral stimulation, which, by the way, everyone, we do every single day when we walk. One,
Mhm.
two, one, two, right?
Mhm.
Our bodies are so used to it, but we don't think of it like that. But when we do the EMDR and we do that bilateral stimulation, it allows the brain to absorb the information appropriately where it was supposed to always absorb it, and to not have it be a trigger. And ultimately, you become desensitized to it. And
Wow.
that's just like my simplest way of kind of describing it. And there's so many different branches now off of EMDR where you can specifically work with people who struggle with addiction with EMDR, or you can work with people who have dissociative identity disorder, which is like multiple personalities, right, with EMDR. So
Wow.
it's expanded so much since the 1970s, which when it was founded by Francine Shapiro, which may she rest in peace. She was fabulous.
I'm sure she was. If I knew
I'm
her, I'm
like,
pretty sure I'd feel the same.
I was gonna say, I was like, she was the founder, was beautiful. I never knew her
Uh,
personally, but
but it sounds like
so
it's
yeah,
just
I
like a
mean,
more physical connection to your mind, which makes a lot of sense. Like for me, like if I go for a
it
walk,
is.
I feel better about things. It's like
Yeah,
you do need that physical aspect. So that's really
you
cool.
do.
That's really cool.
Thank you. Thank you. I love that. I love that. My next venture is to hopefully incorporate that into like drumming and doing like a little bit of a drum circle action with bilateral stimulation, and
Cool.
having a group of people. Um, so like
That's
I'm
cool.
always thinking,
Or
right? I'm always
like,
thinking about,
or like for COVID guidelines, like, all right, let's not meet
yeah,
virtually. Let's not meet in the office. Let's go take a walk and talk about it. Like, that's cool too.
absolutely. 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 No,
Wow.
it's super cool. It's super cool. And I've seen as a therapist, and listen, like I was all about talk therapy. I'm like, okay, Gina, come into my office and let's talk, And I would talk about like skills and all these things. And then I was like, this client's been like seeing me for like 3 years now, and we're like still kind of dealing with similar issues that we were a year ago or 2 years ago. And I just needed something different.
Yeah.
I was like, I need to figure out different techniques. And I think body work has always been like really important to me. We're just not tuned into our bodies enough. Right.
No, definitely
So,
not. That's a huge part of
yeah,
life too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, 100%. So I think like in that situation, I was really, just when I went to my first training for EMDR, I was so excited because I remember walking away being like, this has me jazzed again, like it
Yeah.
just, you need to find those things that get you excited. So yeah, I mean, I've been doing it since, and that's just one of the tricks in the bag.
So do you notice like it works better? Is that why you continue to do it? It helps your clients more than just the talk therapy?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I've had people who have come to me with trauma. We call it complex trauma, right? So that's when like there's been, it doesn't even have to just be like trauma all at one time. It could be I had trauma in my childhood, my adolescence, my adulthood. And let's be real, like when you have trauma at such a young age, let's just even say that that neural pathway gets really sticky where every experience that you have, maybe not every, but most of those experiences that you have in life that turn out to be negative feel traumatic again, because that original trauma was never dealt with.
Yeah.
So I've had people who have come to me with really complex trauma. And I mean, I think about even some people who have had experiences in childhood of physical abuse, and we've been able to clear it in 4 sessions.
Wow. Wow. That's
I
great.
mean,
That's
doesn't always
amazing.
doesn't always take that little bit, but I'm telling you, sometimes the brain, this is a really beautiful thing about our brains, and this is for everyone to kind of hear, right? Like our brain does want to heal itself. Our brain wants to protect us. Even when we're feeling the most anxious days, it's actually our brain saying, "Hey, listen, you're feeling really off. I want to bring this to your attention," right? And then it's our place to then say, "How do I cope and deal with it?" Right?
Hmm.
So our brains do want to heal and be whole and be peaceful. And we just have to kind of do the work around that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. That
Yeah.
definitely makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Also, I feel like a lot of times people are just they're in the mind frame. Maybe it's like from years ago. They're just like, oh, suck it up. Like this is life. And like
Yeah.
that's how a lot of people just like push things away because we feel like, oh, this is just what life is about. It's shitty sometimes
Yeah.
and you deal with it and you're just supposed to move on and forget about it. But I know from
Yeah.
my own past experiences from childhood and different times in my life that like it's very hard to get rid of that trauma sometimes. So
Absolutely. 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 I think that at the end of the day, right? Like the fact that you're even willing to do the work on yourself, excuse me, is the first step always. You know what I mean? Like, I know it sounds so cliche. I know that a lot of people are like, oh, that's what any therapist would say. It's true. I pull out those therapist one-liners. It's okay. Um,
you're
but I
supposed to.
think
You're
it,
supposed to be the one to say
I'm
those things.
supposed to. I know. But I think for me, especially, like, the people who are like, I really want to shift my perspective, or I want to not pass this down to my own child, right? When you do the work, it happens, whatever work that is. If it is talk therapy, there's nothing wrong with that, right? But I think there's just so many different techniques these days, there's so many different options just for, I think, people when it comes to trauma, anxiety, depression. I think people need to exhaust them all,
Yeah. You need to figure out, just like when
Yeah.
you went to school, you need to figure it out. You won't know unless you try it.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Totally.
I'm not telling all of you out there to go try heroin, but maybe, a nice talk therapy
Oh,
session.
I mean,
maybe a glass of wine with a friend talking, anything.
and therapy is therapy, right?
Therapy is
therapy. It's so true, though. It's so true.
It is, because sometimes
Yeah,
I'll come in
yeah.
from a night hanging out with my friends, like we're just drinking and eating off, cheese and crackers, and you just feel good about
Oh,
coming home. You feel
sounds
like
so
you got
great.
something off your chest.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, listen, that's that human connection piece, right? Like we need it, especially us as women. I'll tell you, my tribe of like women in my life has just continued to get bigger and bigger and bigger because I'm literally like, I just need it. You know what I mean? Like I love my
Yeah.
husband, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah. Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, I love him, I love him.
Oh, yeah.
But if I didn't have my tribe, I always call it like our love tank, right? My husband makes up some of my love tank, but my other parts of my love tank that are made up are from my best friends, my coworkers, my family members, mostly strong women, right? That are
Yeah.
in my life that can give me that guidance because, even as you and I were talking before the podcast, I'm like, you give me advice on how to raise a daughter, right? Like I take it as it comes, right? So I think, it's so important for us, I think, especially as women, which is also why I love working with women because I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, like
Yeah.
some of the clients that I
Definitely.
have, like, honestly, these women are amazing.
That's so nice to hear. Like, I know you got a lot of shit going on, but you're still great.
Oh my gosh. Seriously. And it's funny because even as I've watched your podcast and I've seen some of these women that like I went to high school with, right? Or I've known since like middle school or I knew as family friends. I'm like, oh my gosh, the resilience of all of us is amazing.
I know. And I know I had a whole bunch of episodes about infertility because it's funny because I did like a little like, hey, if anybody wants to be on, let me know. And I had so many people that actually wanted to talk about their journey through infertility because it's a huge thing. It's like so huge.
Yeah.
So huge.
Yeah.
And I know you also experienced that. So where did that fall into your career? how did like everything because it's like you're trying to help everybody else out, but like how did that happen for you? Like how was that?
It was so funny. So I consider myself, so I'm friends with Simona, who I know you had on a few weeks ago. And I talk to her sometimes about the fact that like, like I'm an OG of like fertility. Like I've been doing this for a while now,
Yeah.
And we started in 2016 with IVF. I just have I really have like some funky eggs. Like I just have like some like little dud eggs. They're like very like they're like really like lazy. I don't know. But with that being said, we had quite a journey ahead of us. And I never going through that process and honestly going through years, right? So we just got pregnant at the end of 2020, right? Like that was like truly the biggest blessing of 2020 for us.
Definitely. Congratulations on that too, because that's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you. She thanks you from in utero as well.
from the inside.
From the inside. So, I think that like there was just this turning point where it was really challenging as a therapist to have clients coming in, talking to me about their kids and talking to me about their struggles as a parent and talking to me about how easy it was for them to get pregnant and having to stay professional, right? Like, so that was like the biggest thing for me is like,
God.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of breathing. There was a lot of breathing in between sessions.
Oh my God.
And I think for me, I came to kind of like, so it's this theme, right? I have kind of these themes in my life where I'm like, it's like a God intervention or it's a universe intervention, however you want to define it, right? Like I identify my higher power as God, everyone does their own thing. But it was this moment of, I said, I have these emotions and I have a choice of what I want to do with them, right? And I can either sit there and I can feel bad for myself and I can feel bad for mine and my husband's situation, or I can turn this around for other women struggling with infertility and really support and help them.
That's a good aspect to
And
have.
that was the route that I chose, right? Like
Yeah.
that, it was, because I honestly will tell you that I think if I had not made that choice, I would have been in a really dark place.
Definitely.
And I
Definitely.
was.
Yeah.
And I was, you know what I mean? Like I was doing my therapy, I was doing everything that I kind of needed to do, and I was hopped up on hormones. And
just a little bit.
just
a little bit. Not like thousands of needles a bit or anything. No big deal, right?
No. I mean, listen, right? Let's take a sip to that one.
Yeah, I know it's just water,
but still.
But you can pretend like it's wine.
But still. It was such a turning point for me. And I think that like the biggest piece was it wasn't making me feel joyful, right? Like sitting there being angry at people. I didn't want to be that person anymore that my friends didn't want to say, oh, I'm pregnant. I didn't want to be that person that took that joy, and I didn't want it to turn into like about me, right? And so that was like a really big piece of my journey. That was a huge turning point when I started to be like, I'm going to start working specifically with women who struggle with infertility.
That's cool.
I still do to this day. And I work with women going through perinatal and postpartum distress. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, for one thing, it just speaks to the strength that we have as women, right? That we can go through some of these things and come out the other end and be like, I'm still strong as anything, right?
Right. I'm still able to wake up, take care of my kids, go to the grocery store, lug them around everywhere. I'm still doing it.
Yeah. 100%. And I think that there was this other part of me that just, I didn't want to hold on to that anymore, right? Like I didn't want that to be like a defining thing for me, you know? It will always be a part of who I am. That's actually conversations that I've had with some of my fertility warriors, as I like to call them in my life, right? Whether that's a friend or acquaintances or whomever, that I'm like, this will always be a part of my life, but it's not going to define me, you know? I won't allow it to.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. I'm really glad.
Yeah.
And you know what? At the end of the day, you got to where you are because you were resilient about it and you didn't let it get to you, because you could have just given up.
Totally.
You could have just been like, well, this isn't for me. I guess I'll figure something else out. And you didn't.
Yeah. No, 100%. And listen, it's not like my husband and I didn't have those conversations. It's not like we didn't talk about what are our other options. And I think that some of those options are still on the table. You know, I have some really beautiful souls in my life who are like foster mamas. And I'm like, oh, like you just melt my heart.
Especially
like,
with your career.
That.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. You know, and there's challenges there too, right? And there's a lot of, I think, trauma, whether you go through infertility, whether you go through fostering, adoption, there's a lot of trauma in all those different places, just different types of layers, you know?
Definitely.
But yes.
So you went through 4 years of that. 4 years of like IVF and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. So we only, because of the port. So I was diagnosed with diminished ovarian reserve is now the PC term, but it was basically poor egg quality. And so when, people are given this medication, they're sometimes getting, 13 eggs. I was getting 2.
Jeez. That's frustrating.
So really, when I say like, she is a miracle, she's a miracle, but I think that also, with that being said, it was many years, and we would take breaks. I mean, listen, we definitely had moments where I would say, I'm worn out. I need to take a break, because it is very hard to balance. How am I there emotionally for a client when I also need to be emotionally there for myself, right? And I would need to take those breaks, because then I just couldn't be a good therapist to them. Like literally, I would find myself being like, okay, I'm listening to your issues, but I know that I have to do an injection in like an hour. You know what I mean?
And I'm dreading it. Or, maybe it's not even going to work. Why am I doing this? Oh, but I'm here for you. You're like there, but not there, which sucks. That's very responsible of you, though, to acknowledge. And as a person, it's good that you take breaks. And I know I was having a hard time. And one of the worst things that I hated hearing was, don't try, it'll just happen. And like, that's when it fucking did happen. And it's like even more enraging, and you just hate everybody still, but then you have a baby and it doesn't matter anymore. Then you don't have time to worry about any of those other things anymore.
I know. No, absolutely. Absolutely. How long did it take you guys?
We tried for 7 months and then I stopped because I just didn't like the process. I didn't like go through any infertility stuff. I just, wasn't a fan of everything that had to happen along with it. And my body was just like, this is gross.
Yeah.
But I did stop, and I came home one day from a conference, like the day I got home, and we had a great night. And I remember actually calling my best friend, like, well, something happened tonight, so if I get pregnant, we'll know what day it happened on. And it just happened.
How funny.
And it just happened to be that day. So, it happens when you least expect it sometimes. So
absolutely.
But I was preparing for the worst, because I stopped after 7 months, and I planned all these trips for that year because I was planning on in January starting the infertility process because it wasn't happening.
Wow.
So that's why I was like, let me get all this shit in. And then so thankful that I didn't have to go through it, but I can understand, like, that's what I was mentally preparing myself for. Like, all right, this is what I have to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And just even from your podcast, I mean, I think about the people who you've had on here, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the amount of infertility, right? On some level or another, right? Whether it's miscarriage, right? Loss, going through the actual fertility procedures. There's so many women struggling with it. It has become such a hot topic. Of course, there's celebrities like Chrissy Teigen, right? Who's like talking about loss, talking about infertility, talking about all those things. It's beautiful. It's profound. It needs to be discussed, I think, continually a lot more, along with a lot of women's issues, not just infertility. We got a lot of stuff going on as women,
We do.
So it's like, it's conversations I'm already even having. I find myself even with like my young teens, right? Like not too young, but like the girls, and they'll be like, oh yeah, and I'm having all these like inconsistent like menses and and I'm like, you need to go, you need to get these things checked out, right? Like, I think I'm looking at even how I really, and I don't know about you, but like growing up, I totally dismissed some warning signs, not even warning signs, but maybe just little signs that I should have been paying more attention to my body.
Yeah. I mean, I was pretty, not to be like TMI, but I've always been like very regular. So like, I've never missed like a period. You know what I mean? Like I've been, that's why when I went through my labor, that's why like my whole pregnancy, I'm like, oh, everything's been fine all these years. Yeah, I've had a lot more pain than a lot of people have experienced throughout their cycles and stuff, but I should be fine. But it doesn't really work out that way sometimes. One C-section later, and then you're struggling for 3 months. No big deal. No big deal.
Oh my goodness. Now I was going to say, would your intentions be like, if you had, whatever your journey or path is with your husband and growing your family in whatever way that is, do you think that, like, looking back at that, there's anything you would do differently?
I definitely would not have eaten as many sweets as I did when I was pregnant because I gained a lot of weight.
Oh, I can understand that. Sure.
Aside from that, like, it was disgusting. And sometimes now I have the same cravings that I had when I was pregnant. And I'm like, you're disgusting. This, like, you don't even like this, but you want it right now, the sugary thing. So that's why I get freaked out. Gosh. Like, am I pregnant right now? Or is this just in me forever? Because some things just stay in there.
Oh my gosh.
But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
hard
I was
to
gonna say, what was the craziest thing you ate though? What was the craziest thing you ate?
yeah,
Sweets wise.
I didn't eat anything like super crazy. But I do remember just like wanting things I never wanted. So in my mind, it was crazy. Like I absolutely despise Twizzlers, but while I was pregnant, I was like, yeah, I could eat that right now. I could totally eat a whole fucking bag of those.
I love Twizzlers.
I hate them. They're vile to me. But like but like that's when I knew that that there was something with the pregnancy thing. I'm like,
Yeah,
that's absolutely gross. But in terms
absolutely.
of like there's really nothing different you can do because it's just the way your body works and you don't find out
Sure.
how it's going to work until the day that you're in labor. And like I got to the point where
Oh
I was
yeah.
in labor, which was cool because some people they have, medical issues and they're just like they don't have
Yeah.
the option. So, I'm
Sure.
thankful that I got to at least experience labor even though it didn't,
Hmm.
even though it didn't turn out the way I thought it was. I'm grateful that I could experience it, even though it wasn't great. But
Yeah.
like, I don't know, like, and I was saying
Yeah.
before the podcast, like, there's a lot of guilt and shame you put on yourself when you have a C-section,
Yeah.
and you just like it takes a long time to work through that. Some people just prefer it. Some
Yeah.
people are like, oh, I don't want anything touching my beautiful vagina. Like, you know what I mean? I don't ever want to like expand or anything. Some people are crazy like that. And in which case, great. I hope you have a
Yeah.
great C-section. But for most people, you want that natural birth. You want that experience of
Sure.
of like the trauma and then getting something great at the end of it. So
Yes.
so I
Yeah,
don't know.
absolutely.
It's really hard, but I mean also like we need to put light on what happens after pregnancy and after labor when
Yeah.
you have that baby because healing after pregnancy in general, like your hormones are all over the place, but like having a
Mhm.
C-section, trying to heal your body and also take care of a little baby because you don't want anybody else to
Yeah.
take care of it. You want to be the primary caretaker still, even though like
Yeah.
physically you can't like sometimes. So
Yeah.
it's a
Absolutely.
struggle.
Absolutely.
It's a struggle.
It
So
is. It is. I hear you. I think that that's something that you know, I think that clients are always surprised. And I think maybe just even people in my life in general are surprised that I'm a really like transparent and very honest person, right? And I'm like, if I have postpartum, whether that's postpartum anxiety, postpartum OCD, postpartum depression, or some type of distress, right? I know, the steps that I need to take, right? I know that I need to either get myself on some medication, right? Give me the good stuff.
yeah,
I know
definitely.
that, I'm going to get myself into whatever type of therapy technique. I think because it's so funny as a therapist, I'm actually like, I love doing I love doing my EMDR. I love doing talk therapy with a lot of my clients, right? And doing some CBT and different skill sets. But for myself personally, I am like such a yoga person in a lot of ways. And like my relationship with like my yoga teacher, friend, guide in a lot of ways has been so much more powerful for me to kind of overcome different emotional obstacles.
Hmm.
Just even like the work that her and I have done, independently on like a more spiritual level, like it's just been so profound that like I think people just tend to think, like I was saying before, that there's like this one path that you have to go and you don't have to, right? Like, I don't think I want to go that path, right? I
Yeah.
think that my path would look like getting myself physically involved in things, moving my body a little bit more, if I can, right? If I have a
Yes.
C-section and I have to heal and all the above.
Yeah.
Um, but that's where that tribe comes in, like who do I lean
Yeah.
on without, you're right, like having other people necessarily step in and take care of my child. And I feel like that's like, I read this really great quote where I don't know who had posted it, but it was great. But it was like, it's like the husband and, while his wife is breastfeeding and she's like having a breakdown, his suggestion is, well, then let me take the baby from you. And that's like actually the last thing she wants, right? She wants to hold on to that baby, but she needs him to go unload the dishwasher.
Yes.
She needs him to go pick up the
100%.
dinner.
Yes.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I thought,
Yeah.
when I remember reading that, I turned my husband, I was like, this
This is
right
it.
here, like, know
This is
that
it.
now. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah.
It really is. And like
Yeah.
I'm very thankful because my husband is a very hands-on parent and he like helps me
Mm-hmm.
with whatever I need. Anything I ask, like he
Sure.
never really gives me any pushback. So I'm very grateful for that. But I know a lot of couples,
Yeah.
maybe they don't have that with their partner.
Yeah.
Some people still want to be a little
Yeah.
macho, like, no, I'm not changing any diapers. I'm not doing this. I'm like,
Yeah.
but why? Like, why wouldn't you want to help out? Why wouldn't you want to make the situation better?
Sure.
Can you take this fucking laundry
Sure.
downstairs? Can you do it?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Right. Or don't give me the option to take my child from me, who I'm trying to bond with and connect with, and instead, like, do the other things that maybe I don't want to do in that moment. Right. Whether it is the
Hmm.
dishwasher or the laundry or getting dinner or whatever it is, like, don't, it doesn't have to be like, I'll take the baby as if the baby is the problem. Right. That's,
Right,
that's not
right.
often what it is.
Very
And you're right.
true.
Our hormones are messed up postpartum for like a year to 2 years afterwards. So
Especially when you're
you're just getting
breastfeeding.
out of it now. Yeah.
Well, it's like it's really hard because it's like obviously people tell you what it's going to be like, but until you go through it, you don't know. Like she didn't want to latch. Like maybe these are just too big for
Mm.
her, too intimidating. I don't know what it was. I wasn't producing a lot
She's
because
like,
she
too
wasn't.
much, mom, too
This is too
much.
much. I don't even know where to put my head right now. I can't breathe. But like, but it's just like that affects your milk flow and I wasn't producing a lot. And to be honest
Yeah.
with you, the most traumatizing part of having your baby afterwards is pumping your breast. You
Oh,
you just you've some people describe it like you're a cow being milked. Okay, cool. Yeah, but like there is a machine pumping trying to pump the life out of you, which is like
oh,
so annoying because you have to do it like 6 to 8 times a day sometimes. You know what I mean? And it's like you have to
mm,
make sure you're on time. You have to make sure that you're drinking enough water. You have to make sure you're doing this, you're doing that. But if you have like just a straight
mm-hmm.
breastfeeding baby, like the milk flows better. It's a more bonding
Yeah.
experience with your kids. So it's like very very stressful to do the pumping thing. And I did it for six
Yeah.
months and I
Oh,
was like,
yeah.
no, I'm going to do it because this is what I'm supposed to do. If I have another baby and they don't
Oh,
latch, maybe I'll do it for like 2 or 3 months, but I will not do it after that if it's not working
mm-hmm.
because it was
Mm-hmm.
not worth the stress. It wasn't worth
Yeah.
like the time to put it. I got like car chargers so I could do it in the car if I was out. Like who the fuck do you think you are? No, get it off of you. Formula is
Totally.
fine. There's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
formula. Some people are
Yeah.
very against
No,
the formula thing too.
absolutely.
So it's like there's a lot that goes into it. And then you have all
That is
that
best in our opinion. Yeah.
plus all your trauma from like your childhood or like when you're growing up. So you're just putting
Yeah.
everything all into one. So it's like there's a lot
Yeah.
going on during that time of your life.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing because, like, even in signing up for like my registry, right? I'm going through and I'm talking to my girlfriends, and I'm talking to my sister, and I'm talking to my cousin's wife, and I'm talking to all these people, and they're like, get this, don't get this. Okay. And then that contradicts with what this person was just telling me to get. And
Hmm.
I will tell you that, like, actually the most stressful part of my pregnancy so far has been putting together the registry and then picking a breast pump, because I was like, these selections, and literally people have such strong opinions about breast pumps. They're like,
Oh yeah.
don't get this one. Make sure you get this one. Well, I'm not about to spend $800 on a breast pump that I might not even be able
No.
to use. So it
No.
was just, it's amazing. And honestly, like, my husband and I, it's so funny because we're taking this class and it's a breastfeeding class. And it said, like, partners don't need to come. And I was like, you're coming. And I literally was like, you need to come, because I could see myself in that moment of being like hormonal, stressed out, sleep deprived, and be like, what am I supposed to be doing again?
They're not
And
latching
needing
and they need
that
to
outside.
eat and I don't know what else
No,
to
I
do.
know, right? And like needing that outside perspective to be like, okay, like, let's try this. Let's try this different hold. It's so funny how like men will like zoom in on certain things. And so like we have a midwife. And so we were at our midwife's office, and he was like, oh, like, what do you think of like that position, like the football position or the this position or that? And I was like, how are you like tuned into this right now? Like, I'm like not even there right now. And he's like, what about this idea? And I'm like, oh my gosh, but that's awesome, right?
Yeah, no, it
Because
really is. You don't
I'm
want
not
to hear
there.
it. You don't want to hear it, but it's also awesome.
It is, right? I was more so like, why didn't I think of that? Like the rugby hold? Yeah,
Right.
I'll do that
Right.
rugby hold thing. Sure,
Right.
right, yeah.
But honestly,
But
like
I agree with you.
you could do all the practice you want. It just depends on what your baby's going to do, unfortunately. And it sucks because it's
100%.
like, you're like, oh no, I definitely think this is going to be the best way. And they're like, no, I don't want to be held that way. No.
Oh my
And then I had to go to a
gosh.
lactation specialist afterwards because I was getting frustrated, because I wanted to
Yeah.
do it the right way. Like I couldn't give birth the right way. At least let me be able to freaking breastfeed. They're big enough. You would think they'd fill up enough, but that doesn't mean
Oh
anything that you find out afterwards. Doesn't mean
gosh,
anything.
so many
So
lies since 6th grade. So many lies
so
since
many
6th grade about our
lies.
bodies.
So
That
many
health
lies.
class was so unhelpful.
No, what, you gave me pads? Cool. Thank you so much for making it even more awkward. Let me
Yes.
carry these pads around with all the little boys around too. Cool. Great. No.
I mean, they were the size of diapers at that time.
Oh
So
my God, they
let's
were
be real. They were
horrible.
not cute and discreet.
Horrible.
And
No,
yeah, they
I
were
buy
not
those
great.
like
They were
thin
not great.
always ones, and they give these like they're like this thick. Like how am I supposed to wear that? Oh God. The
I know.
lies.
It's
The
crazy though.
lies and
It
the
is.
deceit that we just come across in life. And then you're an adult and you get even more pissed about it because you're like, what the fuck, man? Why couldn't you just be
Oh my
honest?
gosh. It's true. It's so true. And I'll tell you, even now, as I'm going through pregnancy and hearing all like my different friends' experiences or professionals and their opinions, and sometimes reading these books, and I'm like, is this even going to happen for me? Right. Or watching the YouTube videos that I'm like, oh my gosh, like that was their birth experience. And some of them can look so beautiful. And then other times they can look so horrific. And you're just
Yeah.
like, where am I going to fall in the beautiful versus the horrific? Right.
You
But,
won't know. You won't know.
you won't know.
You won't
You
know.
won't know.
All
Thank
I
God
can
I'm a
say
therapist,
is
right? I'm gonna just have to do like a
yes. Yes. I was going to say, all I can say is pack your bags and pretend like you're going to be there for 4 or 5 days. That's all I'm saying. And
oh my
also,
goodness.
a huge PSA, I loved the Depends afterwards because you have to like wear, I know this is also TMI, you have to like wear
Yes,
things because you bleed for a little while
I've
afterwards. Like
heard.
the Depends were life
Correct.
changing. Don't worry about pads.
Hmm.
Put on some Depends and then throw that shit away when you're done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's good tips, right? No one really talked to me
Yeah.
about the Depends yet. So you're the first
Yeah.
one. So
Oh,
I'll
dude.
take it and I'll run with that. But I
Yes,
think,
and like if
yeah,
you don't have a vaginal birth, you don't need those like pad things. You don't need to like freeze anything. Like your vagina is like feeling fine. It's your stomach that's the issue. So like
mm,
I was prepared with all these things, the little squirt bottle, the this, the that. I was going to make the frozen pad so my vagina
oh,
would feel good. I didn't need any of it. I didn't need any of it.
oh
I
my
wasn't really prepared for the
gosh, oh my
C-section,
gosh.
and there's I guess nothing you really
Oh,
can do for that, but like I don't know. I
no,
went overboard.
no,
And I'm just glad that I packed for a couple days and like bring your own dresses,
yeah,
like some flowy dresses, like the button down
yeah,
ones. Like you don't want to be in like the
okay,
hospital gowns. Like it just doesn't, I
no.
don't know. You'll feel better. You'll feel better.
True, for sure, for sure. We're riding right now. We're just gonna ride this wave and just see. It's funny because I think truthfully, having gone through years of infertility, something that like I often will like still kind of get stuck on is will this happen? Right? Like, so I know she's in there and I know I'm going into my third trimester next week and I'll be 28 weeks. But I got to tell you, there is always that, right? It kind of goes back to my own trauma of going through infertility and having so many failed experiences.
Yeah.
There is always that piece of, will this actually happen for us? And it takes a lot of patience, a lot of redirecting. So in some ways, it's like I think that I do these things like looking forward to like the future of like watching these birth stories, which I really need to cut down on. I mean, I
I think
really
you
need to
do.
cut
I
down on
really
those.
do.
I
Maybe
would
look for like
say,
birthing
um,
positions, not the stories.
yes, yes, yes. I mean, it's so real. It's so real.
Yeah.
But I think like even with that piece, it's just trying to, I think, prepare myself or refocus, right? That like this will happen, right? Almost kind of like that manifestation.
You have to. You
Which I
have to
know
stay
is,
positive, even like because of what you
yeah,
went through. Because if you're not positive,
yeah,
then you're not
100%.
gonna like what if this is your only pregnancy you have? You know, you don't want to make it miserable
Yeah,
for
yeah,
yourself. And like after I had my
yeah,
C-section, I'm like,
100%.
what if that's the only one? What if I don't want to do this again? You know, because in my mind, I'm still like,
Yeah,
do you really want to go through that again? Like, but also like, what if it's natural the second time? Who
yeah,
knows? You don't
yeah,
know.
yeah,
So don't make it miserable for yourself.
totally.
Enjoy it as much as you can.
No, yeah. Yeah, that's all we're doing. That's all we're doing right now. And the great thing is we're getting into summer, we're getting into a little bit more, do I say normalcy, right? Like we're right, we're starting to experience life, I think, again a little bit, right? And so I think that in these next like few months, and really let's be real. I mean, did Jasmine come early or late?
Late. Late. She was like a week
Oh,
late.
see?
Oh, I'm so pissed about it because like she was due on July 3rd. She wasn't there till like the 9th. And I was hoping for
Oh
July
my
4th because then
gosh.
everybody would celebrate her birthday every year. And like there's millions of
Oh, that's
parties. Where
selfish,
do you want
girl.
to
That's some
go?
selfishness right there.
But it's also my
Some
half
selfish stuff right there.
birthday. It's my half birthday. So I'm like, oh,
Oh
we'll have
my
this
goodness.
thing. And it's like, nope, no, that's nice that you thought that that was going to happen, but you're just going to be miserable that last week.
Okay.
So
That's so funny. That's so funny. No,
yeah.
I mean, but it's like really though, right? Like in those last, like that last trimester, you're like, okay, like we probably have like a month into it. And then it's kind of go time, like when you kind of get to that, like, I feel like 33, 34 week time, they're like starting to talk to you a little bit more so of like, they
It could
can
happen at any
start like
time.
coming.
I think
Yeah.
after 36 weeks,
Yeah.
that's when they're like, if the baby comes at any time, you'll be okay and they'll be okay. You know what I mean? Like that's like the
Yeah.
safe zone, I feel
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
And then
For
I've known
sure.
people that are like 2 or 3 months early and their babies have survived. It just
Yeah.
depends.
Beautiful.
Just depends.
Thank God
So
for
keep a
technology.
positive
Thank God for
attitude.
technology.
It's been
I
good for you
will.
so far, and you'll be in my
Yeah.
thoughts. I'm sending some good energy through you for you
Thank
through the rest
you.
of your pregnancy. When are
Thank
you due?
you. So I'm due September 1st, but I got to tell you, August 26th keeps coming to my mind.
Oh.
I
Do
know.
you
I
want it
know.
to be on that day, or is it just like that's like what
You know
you're
what? It's
getting?
funny. And you know what? I'm just kind of getting an August 26th kind of vibe. What's funny though is that like ever since we found out that our due date was September 1st, my family, right? So like my sister, my mother, her husband, they've all been like wishing for us to have an August baby because we have my mother's wedding anniversary. She's remarried. We have my nephew's birthday. We have other people's birthdays. It's like they're basically like, oh no, like September's packed. And I'm like, oh, it's like not like we have a choice necessarily, right? So, but for some reason, I'm
Listen,
feeling like she could be an August baby. So we'll see.
you'll be the one to tell. I mean, you would know better
Yeah,
than anybody else, so you never know. I like really
I
hope it's on
know.
August 26th now, just for your own like, yeah, I knew it.
I knew it. Well, I'll tell you, I knew she was a girl before I knew she was a girl.
Oh yeah. I feel
Oh, it was
like
like a very strong feeling.
I feel like I knew she was a girl as well. I also wanted a
Yeah.
girl and I went through some shit
Oh,
finding out that she was a girl and everything was fine, but I was just like,
yes.
yes. Yes, it's a girl. Yes, I was right. Thankful. Thank God.
Yes.
Thank you. Whoever it is
Yes.
that decided this was going to happen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. It's funny because I actually kind of when I'm growing up, but because of my nephews, I've gotten so used to be around boys that I was like, oh, I'm probably gonna have boys, right? So I was like really emotionally prepared. And I was kind of like, yeah, I don't think I want a girl. Like I remember being a young girl. That was like super complicated. There was like a lot of things going on with my body.
Yeah.
Girls were kind of mean at times too. Like I just was not like a fan, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny because as time went on, the idea of her being like, as soon as we got pregnant and me just being like, I feel like it's a girl, was like just something that I like relaxed into a little bit more. And I'm just kind of at this place now of relax. Like we'll
Good.
figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely wanted one because like I have a stepson. The ex that I had, he had a
Yeah.
son. Like I had my nephew. Like I was just kind of like sick of the boy thing. So I'm
Yeah.
like very thankful that I had the girl. And you know, it will bite me in the ass
Yeah.
when she's a teenager. And I know that. Knowing is half the battle.
I know, right? We can't be in denial for like the rest of our lives.
No.
We'd be like, oh, yep, they'll have some teen stuff, they'll have
Yeah.
friend stuff, it'll be there.
Yeah. What are you
It'll
gonna
be
do?
there.
Slam the door on me again because you're upset? Oh, cool. Here it comes. Like I get it.
Oh my gosh, how
do.
sad is that? I'm like, you tapped into my brain when I would like get into fights with my mom. I'd be like, I'm leaving, I'm getting out of this car now. Like, where was I going? I
Where
don't
are
think
you
I was going anywhere.
Where are you
right?
going?
Like,
You have a flip phone. You don't even have GPS on it. Where were you going?
and I was gonna say, and I didn't have minutes.
No.
It was the worst. It wasn't after 8 o'clock.
No. And like the stupid
my
attitude
gosh.
that you give your mom. Like who are you?
Oh,
Who are you
yeah.
to be talking to your mother like that? Like if she does it
I
to me, I'm
know.
gonna get so pissed, but then I have to like think about myself. Like
You were there.
that's
You
what
did it too.
happens.
Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh.
I'm so happy. I'm excited. I'm excited to like see what she looks like because that's the most exciting part.
Yeah.
Wait, did you get to the anatomy scan yet?
Oh yeah.
It's what week is that at? 20 weeks?
That's 20. That's
20
20.
weeks.
Yeah.
Everything's good?
She is, yeah, we had a bit of a doozy. We had some medical concerns with her at one point where, we had to go to maternal fetal medicine. They had seen some like dilated ventricles in her brain. I will tell you though, Danbury Hospital maternal fetal medicine was like phenomenal in the sense that, I mean, the doctor kind of lacked bedside manners, which I'm never like, I'm never necessarily surprised by, but what I will say was interesting is, like her and I had like an MRI together, right? And like I just remember being in that like big noisy machine. And I'm not even kidding you. I think I was like, because you can't even like hear anything going on around you.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, this is the best way for us to like, just be able to look at her ventricles a little bit more. I was just like singing to her. I'm not even kidding you. I was like singing to her and just being like, I don't know what I was singing. It was probably like something on the radio that I just like listened to, but I was just like singing to her because I was just like, I can't imagine that in utero you're going through like your first MRI right now.
Yeah.
And like, I'm able to be here and I'm able to like protect you in whatever way I can. But it was amazing. They did their due diligence. And when we actually went a few weeks after that, everything had just normalized. And that's the cool thing about babies, right? Is like they do some funky stuff in utero and then like things turn out fine. And so I have to tell you, in pregnancy, it's taught me to slow down a little bit more and realize that like if she can overcome some of this stuff, so can I with like symptoms, the tough days, the struggles, whatever. So it's very interesting. The best thing I will say to anyone is like, especially a woman who's going through pregnancy or has a child or whatever it is, like you learn so much from them. I'm already learning so much from her. And I hope that she just continues to teach me as I hope I can teach her too,
Just wait.
Yes.
Actually, this week, the theme for this week is, okay, so my week has been shit. Okay, I'm 5 days late on my period. I am never late. I'm also not pregnant because I took a test yesterday. So everything's fine.
Just
my
say
body
something to us all.
Oh no, my body just hates me right now. I guess this is what I've come down to because there's no other reason for it at this point. Also, so on top of that, my husband got sick 3 days ago and I isolated him. So we've never done that before. Like I've never none of us have ever isolated, but I was just like, I don't want to get sick and I don't want her to get sick right now. Like we're just starting the summertime and like, so I isolate him. So I've been like a single parent for the last 3 days, which is tough to all you single parents out there. You deserve an award and a vacation because I don't know how the hell you do it. Seriously.
Yes. Yes. We're all clapping for you. Yes.
Oh man. And she's like I work and he doesn't right now. He's looking for a job. So he's kind of like the primary caretaker. So I think she was just going through some shit with missing him this week, throwing tantrums more than she ever has ever, throwing herself on the floor, which is a new thing. I'm like, where are you getting this from? Are you so angry at this point that this is what you need to do? And I'm just like, I don't even, because I can't touch you because you're going to freak out even more. So I have to learn how to deal with this, and I know there's a whole bunch going on, but the biggest piece this week was I gave her a popsicle. She's obsessed with popsicles. And she was having a tantrum. So I gave her one and she calmed down a little, but then it broke and she couldn't get it back together. And then she freaked out even more. And I'm like, you think this is bad? Just wait till you're an adult when things break emotionally, physically, and you can't put them back together. So in my mind, I'm having revelations. I'm like, okay, how am I going to teach her that it's okay? When mentally I'm like, I'm breaking right now. I'm like, oh my God, this is how you become a good mom. You have to relate things to how they're going to be when they're adults so you can help them work through it. So that was my revelation for this week.
It's been so fabulous connecting with you again.
Definitely. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast. I know we've had a little scheduling hiccups. I'm sorry about that. My life is a shit show now.
It happens. It happens.
This is also
go with the flow of it.
Yeah, this was also a very enlightening conversation. I hope that whoever's listening can relate, can take something away from it. There is help if you want help.
Absolutely.
Don't be afraid to ask for help because more than likely we're all going through it. I mean, there are some situations that might be a little different, but more than likely we are all suffering.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, it's amazing. The one thing I will say to people just listening is try out anything and everything when it comes to therapy and when it comes to therapists, because people sometimes stick with therapists and they're not the right fit. Okay. So trust your gut because your gut knows.
Yeah, for sure. I second that.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much again for coming on. This was great. And I'm very excited to have a relationship with you again. I'm definitely going to be following you throughout your pregnancy. I can't wait to see your little girl, see what she looks like.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for just being a phenomenal host.
Thank you.
Yes. And, and I hope that your body just continues to love you moving forward.
Yeah, if you can send some, what is that, ED, whatever, can you send some of those
EMDR?
Yeah, can you send some of that to me so I can just get my period and be done with this, please?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. No, for sure.
Thank you. If anybody is interested in her services, I will provide her link now. Let me just pull it up real quick. ifccounselingservices.com. That's where you can find her website. That's where you can reach out to her. If anybody's interested, she's a great person to talk to, and I think you'd really benefit from it. So hit her up.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I hope everybody's enjoyed this conversation. I know I have. Again, if you want to be on my show, if you're interested in hearing about anything else, let me know. So thank you so much for watching. You're the best.